Hello, everyone that is on here. We're going to just give it a few more minutes, allow everyone to hop on as they come into their lunch hour. Hope everyone's doing well today. And thank you for spending your lunchtime with me. I can't wait till we go ahead and get started. For those of you on, if anybody wants to let me know if you're a current patient, or not even a current patient, of how you heard about us and if you're familiar at all with naturopathic medicine. See a few people joining on, so let's give them a few minutes and then we'll get started. For those of you that are on, as we go through the presentation, feel free to drop your questions on the chat box and then we can answer them live. You know, we're going to be talking about perimenopause, and the biggest thing is that women start to feel hot, and now the weather is definitely warming up. So I know a lot of people are going to definitely start experiencing some of the heat symptoms. Time to turn our ACs up. Feel like we had a really nice end of May though. So I'm praying because we had really nice windy days and cool evenings up until the last week that our summer is not as hot as usual. I can always be optimistic. I've been living in AZ my entire life, born and raised here, and I still get optimistic every summer that it's not going to be as brutal, but I am blessed that we have great AC in our buildings. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about perimenopause, what it is, what are the symptoms that start to happen, and then tips so that you can, one, recognize that it's happening, and two, what can you put in place so that it's a smooth transition? And what are some of the things that we offer here that can be helpful in that transition? So who am I? I'm Dr. Celaine Moreno. I have been a naturopathic doctor now for exactly 8 years. So I love what I do. I love the knowledge that I have. I came across naturopathic medicine on like a student discovery day. I always knew I kind of wanted to help people one way or another. So in my undergrad, I opted to do a bachelor's in psychology because my thought process was if I can learn people behavior or human behavior, it will make me a better doctor. It will help me learn and understand people better. And while I did my undergrad, I also did medical interpreting for the U of A medical students. I'm fluent in Spanish, and I got a little taste of what we call our traditional medical system look like, and realized like maybe that's not the route I want to go. I really want to sit with patients. I want to get to know them. I want to help them find true healing. So then I had a girlfriend maybe a year or two later after I graduated from undergrad invite me to a student discovery day that one of our naturopathic medical schools here in Arizona was hosting. And that's when I got to hear from naturopathic doctors that had been practicing for decades. And I learned what naturopathic medicine was. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I had in mind when I said I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to understand people better. And now I am blessed to work for this beautiful practice where we get to spend time with our patients. We get to know our patients. I get to learn about their kids. I get to learn about their pets. I get to learn where they're going on vacation. And it's truly a relationship where we're both working towards establishing a health goal and working towards that goal. And my patient is just as much a deciding factor in their treatment sheet as I am. We make that decision together based on what is best for them. So really my goal in healthcare is to help people realign themselves, their mind, their body in a way that is conducive to long-term health. So we are in the preventative game. We are here to prevent chronic disease, since like 1 out of, I think 60% of people will be faced with a chronic disease in their life. So our goal is to really educate people on how to take care of their life so they don't get there. So I have a lot of passion for the mental health aspect. Hormone balancing, as you will learn today, we'll be talking about that. Burnout moms and overwhelmed, busy career women really have a soft spot in my heart because I too have been there. I have 3 kids, 2 step kids, so a total of 5. And so we're a big blended family, and I'm a career woman. I work as a doctor. My husband has his own business, so we're busy people. So my goal is to help these busy women transition into the different stages of life at their most optimal self. So we'll learn a little bit about that today and what that looks like specifically in the perimenopause stage. So I put a card here it's a card that's written to menopause and saying, hey, I have some questions. Like, am I in perimenopause? Like, why am I crying at the celebrity's dog? Like, that doesn't even make sense. What does sleep even feel like? When's the last time I woke up rested? When's the last time I woke up and felt like I actually slept? Can we agree sometimes we wake up feeling more tired than when we went to sleep? Is there such a thing as cute sweat wicking sheets, like you're waking up drenched at night? So like, what's up with this vast void of misinformation on what this stage is? So, and it says, text me at 4 a.m. to get more information. I'll be up. Because transitioning into this stage, one of the most common symptoms I hear is like the sleep impact on it. So what exactly is perimenopause? So it's the transition period between your reproductive years, meaning the years that you're able to have babies, and menopause. And menopause, it's officially when your reproductive years are over, you're no longer able to have children. And so that in-between period is what we call perimenopause. And this is a time where hormones start to fluctuate and menstrual periods can become irregular. Maybe you miss a period for a couple months. Maybe you have 2 periods in 1 month. Maybe you think you've already made it through because it's been 4 months, but then all of a sudden you start menstruating again. And it most commonly starts in 40s to 50s, but we're seeing that it can start as early as your mid-30s, late 30s. So it's starting a little earlier on. So I want you to be able to identify what those symptoms look like so you can see and answer that question that we saw in that other slide where it's like, perimenopause, am I in it? I think I'm in it. So today we're going to get some clarity on that. And this stage can really last, it can last years. So we want to make those years as easy as possible so the transition is smooth for you. And so, have you noticed any recent changes like in your cycle? So again, like is your cycle getting shorter? Is it getting longer? Is it getting heavier? Are you having spotting in between? Is your mood like, are you all of a sudden like not recognizing who you are? Like you are pulling yourself aside in meetings, being like, girl, what's happening? Like, who is this? Are your kids being like, Mom, are you all right? And is your like husband hiding from you at a certain time of the month? Like what's happening with your mood, right? Like this meme says, I'm crying and I don't know why. So like not being able to have full control of what this mood disruptions going on. And sleep, like I said, sleep is a really big one that I hear when I'm taking a case with clients. Usually I ask them about sleep, and I'm like, well, when did you notice your sleep started to shift? And a lot of the time they say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, some of them say even 5 years ago. And I think in my personal experience, sleep is the first indicator that things are starting to shift. But we talked about the irregular periods, about the hot flashes. Like this meme says, hot flashing is my superpower. For those that have them, I know my patients describe them. All of a sudden, you're just in a room and you're just blazing hot. And it makes no sense because you were freezing one moment and then all of a sudden you're blazing hot. And that's another thing I hear. It's like you're freezing cold all the time, carrying around a sweater, and then within an instant you're having beads of sweat on your forehead, back of your neck, and you don't know what's happening. Or you're having those hot flashes at night, and we call them night sweats, and you're waking up, your sheets are drenched, or your PJs are drenched, or you're just like really uncomfortably hot in bed. I had a client who installed like so many fans around her room. Like she had the overhead fan, and she had a fan facing from the side, a fan facing at her feet. And this is a patient that was in that perimenopause stage, and it happened fast. And she wasn't to the point where she's like full blown sweating, but she was starting to get really warm at night, very uncomfortable. We ran her labs, and sure enough, it had those signs that she was entering perimenopause, and we were able to help get that hormonal balance in place so she wasn't experiencing those night sweats anymore, and she can get some restful sleep. We talked about the mood changes, just all of a sudden either feeling more irritable, having less patience, or feeling really weepy or very sensitive, not realizing why all of a sudden something your kid said or something your husband said or something your boss said, and you're all of a sudden in your office crying. It doesn't make any sense to you, and you're trying to be logical through it and just not working. So we see some of those mood changes. We see a decrease in libido. So that means a decrease in sex drive. And not only just sex drive, but the ability to climax or and have pleasure through it. And then sometimes that's accompanied by vaginal dryness. So there's just not as much lubrication, and that can become painful and not as enjoyable. We start to see weight gain. This is I've heard so many women say, oh my God, I'm going through perimenopause and I see a cookie and I can gain 10 pounds by just looking at it. And we see that transitioning happening with those hormone fluctuations. The body starts to store more weight. Anxiety can happen because it's a very uncomfortable state to be in, where you can't rely on what your mood's gonna look like. You don't know when you're gonna have a hot flash. You don't know if something your husband's done every day of his life all of a sudden is annoying to you. Same thing with your kids. You start to experience joint pain or waking up feeling a little stiff, or your hand starts to feel stiff in the morning, or you're having like bone pains like in your forearms or in your legs all of a sudden. Maybe your hips are starting to feel achy. Brain fog is a really big one. I think this is another one of those really insidious symptoms that are like at the beginning. You just don't feel as cognitively sharp as you used to. A lot of women patients will tell me, like, I used to remember everybody's name, like I had no issues, or I used to be able to do math on the spot. I was sharp, and they're like, all of a sudden, like, I can't, like, I'm just staring and at this person that I've known for years, and all of a sudden I can't remember their name. I had a patient yesterday tell me, and she's like, yeah, I stare at something and I can't remember the name for it. So that brain fog starts to set in, where you're word seeking, you can't find the name for objects, you can't remember the name of your common friends or people that you've known for a long time. You walk into a room, you don't know why you walked in there, you have to go and retrace your steps, you're losing your keys more often, misplacing your phone. And then acne, like, adults, acne starts to set in, and you're like, what is happening? I thought I was done with this when I was a teenager. And all of a sudden you start to experience acne because we're having those hormone fluctuations. And like I said, we talked about the sleep disruptions being a really big one. Just either not being able to fall asleep right away, or if you're able to fall asleep, waking up several times throughout the night, or just feeling like your sleep is not restful, like you're not getting into a deep quality sleep, and then you're not waking up feeling rested. So those are some of the symptoms that we start to see. So, and like I said, a lot of these symptoms start very, very lightly, like sprinkled in, and then they get more and more consistent. So I would bring awareness, like if you start having the symptoms, I really encourage you to talk to your provider about it so that they can be caught on time before they become more intense, before they start to really disrupt your everyday life, before you're going 2-3 years with poor quality sleep. Because a lot of the times I see the sleep go before I start to see the hot flashes, the night sweats. We start to see the brain fog before we start to see those night sweats. So night sweats, hot flashes is what we associate the most with that perimenopausal stage, but there's all these other symptoms that kind of start to set in maybe a year or two before you start getting the night sweats and hot flashes. And they're kind of letting you know, like, hey, this is happening. And if you are staying on top of it with your doctor, we can, again, help make that transition a lot smoother. Okay, and then what are these hormonal shifts that are happening? So estrogen, our estrogen is what we know as the female hormone. Estrogen is what, like, when it's high, it makes us feel amazing, makes us take on new projects. We feel really good. I was just watching a meme. And it goes through like the different stages of the menstrual cycle, and that when estrogen is high, it's like when you slay things, when you take on new projects, when you feel on top of the world. So imagine if when estrogen is like going up really high, then dropping really low, and you're having those really intense peak and valleys that are happening through that perimenopause stage. And estrogen, it's a huge contributor to your mood, to the steadiness of your menstrual cycles. It's very important for your bone health. It's very important for your brain health. I know one of our doctors, I've heard her say, like, anytime you have a hot flash, your brain's literally on fire. So estrogen is really important for our brain health. It's really important for our skin health. And whenever we're having those dips, we're starting to see the hot flashes, the mood swings, the irregular cycles. And estrogen is very important to stimulate those cells that make bone. So with low estrogen levels, you don't get as much stimulation to those cells, and then your bone density can decrease. And that's why it's something that we monitor very religiously, is your bone density. And that's why estrogen is so important for your bones. Progesterone is what I consider the cooling, calming hormone. It's the anxiolytic hormone. It's the hypnotic. So hypnotic means it helps you sleep. It helps your nervous system stay calm. And again, really important for your cycles balancing. So when it starts to get low, we start to see some anxiety. So some nervous system dysregulation, sleep issues. So just not being able to get into a deep, restful sleep. And then when progesterone is low, we start to feel those PMS symptoms even worse. So maybe you didn't have a lot of PMS in your 20s and your 30s. And then in your 40s, all of a sudden, like, you're getting super irritable, you're getting super bloated, you're getting breast tenderness. You just feel really crummy a week or days leading up to your menstrual cycle. So that's a drop in progesterone. And then your testosterone. Testosterone, we think of it as a male hormone, but it's very important for women as well. Just like a certain level of estrogen is really important for men, a certain level of testosterone is really important for women as well. It is very crucial for your libido, so your sex drive. It's very imperative for your fatigue. Like, if you have like this deep level of fatigue, a lot of the time it's low testosterone. Important for your muscle mass. And we want to ensure that you have good muscle mass, because if you have good muscle mass, you are putting pressure on those bones, since muscle is attached to bone. And by putting pressure on those bones, you're strengthening your bones. So a combination of estrogen and testosterone, very important for your bone health. And testosterone is really important for your motivation. It's that hormone that if you have good levels of it, you're looking in the mirror and you're like, yeah, girl, we got it. Like, you look fabulous. It's the hormone that just gives you that oomph, that makes you feel good, that makes you driven, that makes you motivated. So a lot of the time when I'm having patients with that low testosterone, one, they're going to have a low sex drive, because if we look at it in our reproductive years, testosterone really only peaks when there's ovulation happening, and ovulation is the time that we can make a baby. So good levels of testosterone are going to indicate that you have a good sex drive, that you feel confident and motivated, and you feel like your overall best. And it really helps, like I said, with that really deep level of exhaustion or that level of mental exhaustion and having some brain fog. So it helps alleviate the brain fog, gives you more physical energy, and overall it just helps your motivation, your drive, your confidence. So as you can see, we need all of these hormones to be optimal in order for our brain to be functioning, our physical health to be functioning, our nervous system to be functioning optimally. And then perimenopause, it's a stage where it's kind of like a new stage in life. It's a new stage for women to find their new identity, because it's a phase where women are shifting from being full-time caregivers of young children, or if they don't have children, or if they do, it's a time where women have basically worked really hard in their careers, and they're in their 40s now, where they're kind of settled into their career. They made a name for themselves. If they have kids, their kids are either older now or teenagers now, and they have more time to dedicate to themselves now. They're not hustling as hard anymore. Their children don't need as much caregiving from them anymore. It's like a different level once they're older. So they have a little more mental capacity and also just time to dedicate to themselves. So it's a time of like reclaiming yourself and who you are and what you want the next stage of life to look like. Your reproductive years are ending. So it's a time to reshift the focus to self. It's a time to reshift the focus of making self-care not just a survival thing, but a thing that's essential for your well-being. So a lot of time, busy moms, busy career women, their plate is pretty full. Eating, they eat because they need to. They eat when they remember to, or they go to sleep late, or this is common for women, like they put their young little kids to bed and then they stay up for 3 to 4 hours because it's like the only quiet time they get to themselves. And that's like just a vicious cycle. But it's the time, this is perimenopause, it's the time where all those things are essential for your next stage of life, like making sure diet is optimal, sleep is optimal, so that we can transition through that smoothly. So it's a time to really define, like, who do you want to be in this next stage of life? What do you want to look like? What do you want to feel like? And what's your next? So we're going to go over some tips that you can put in place to help make that transition smoother. Strength training is a big one. We just talked about the importance of having good muscle mass so we can protect your bone. And that's going to start with strength training, but strength training also helps support your metabolism. It helps support a steady weight, and then obviously your musculoskeletal health. The more muscle mass that you have, the better protection for your bone, but also the more active your metabolism is. Muscle is very metabolically active, so we want to keep that metabolism as active as possible, because in this stage, we start to see metabolism overall slow down. So we want to combat that slowing by making sure that we're strength training. And overall, it's going to help boost your confidence, and it helps kind of reclaim your identity as you're moving through this new phase of life. And by strength training, it doesn't mean you have to go out and lift heavy weights. You can do body weights. Like this lady's only lifting an 8-pound. Like you don't have to go out there and become a bodybuilder by any means, or a power lifter, but just anything that's going to be a weight-bearing exercise. And then we have diet. A constant issue that I run into with women is under eating. One, they're either too busy, or two, like it's just, again, they're too busy. So eating, it's kind of like a forethought. Like it's not their first priority. It's not what they think about. They're busy either feeding kids, or they're busy with work, or whatever it is, or they've lost a lot of those hunger cues where they've gone so long without eating that They don't even feel hungry. So they're surviving off caffeine. Caffeine is a natural appetite suppressant. So if you're surviving off caffeine or starting off your day with caffeine, it's going to naturally decrease your appetite throughout the day. And we don't necessarily want that. We want to make sure that you're eating the proper amount of macronutrients, especially your protein and good carbs, so that you're building your muscle mass and you're stabilizing your blood sugar. Because a lot of these mood dysregulations can also be from low blood sugar. The older you get, the more hormonal imbalances there is, the more sensitive we become to blood dysregulation issues. And one of the biggest ways to prevent that is ensuring that we're not skipping meals. So ensuring that we're starting our day with a good amount of protein and good quality food, and then planning a good lunch and a good dinner. I don't think women should necessarily. So intermittent fasting, a lot of women say, well, I'm just intermittent fasting, but that's really because they're not doing it purposefully. They're just skipping breakfast and just drinking coffee. So they just call it intermittent fasting. And then they're not eating a good lunch and not a good dinner. So that doesn't work. If truly you're going to do intermittent fasting, you have to be very intentional about the meals, the eating window that you're eating at, and how much protein you're eating in that window, and what quality food you're eating during that window. Just because you're too busy to eat breakfast doesn't mean you're automatically okay to do intermittent fasting. Like that does take some level of intention behind it in order to do it right and not further screw up your metabolism. If we think about metabolism, we can think about it like a campfire. And in order to keep a campfire burning, we need to add logs, correct? So that's what we're doing with our metabolism. We're feeding it logs. That's why it's important that we're consistently eating, because if we're not consistently eating, that fire is going to dim out and it's going to become really small. And this is when your metabolism really starts to slow down, and we don't want it to burn out. We want to consistently feed it good quality foods, specifically protein. Really, really important to get good protein intake. And then we have stress management. So we have our building blocks that make our hormones. Stress is our cortisol hormone. So it's one of the hormones, and those building blocks are all the same. So these building blocks, if we are constantly under stress, are going to be used to make stress hormone versus making all your sex hormones, like the ones we talked about, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone. So being under chronic stress, it's going to eat away all those building blocks, and you're not going to have enough to actually make some for your hormones. So it's important that we are being mindful with our stress and what we're allowing to stress us. And in this perimenopause stage, we want to be very mindful about what we're allowing on our plate, setting really good boundaries, because what you might have been able to tolerate in your 20s, in your 30s, might not be as easy to tolerate or to take on during this stage. It's a stage really where you start to reclaim what you want to be, who you want to be, who you want to allow into that plate, what you want to allow into that plate, because it's a time to take care of yourself. So I would really evaluate that. Like, what are the things that are depleting my stress hormone, and do they belong there? Can I outsource them? Or have they just been on my plate for so long that they're just living there without intentionality, and then being able to remove them? So I encourage you to look at, what does that plate look like? What is causing stress, even at a low level? Because a lot of the time we are in a repetitive cycle and we don't even know what we're utilizing our stress hormone for, because it's been there for so long. So a new you, right? New phase, new you, time to spring clean, basically. And look at what is causing you stress, and being able to reset your boundaries on that, be able to eliminate some things, and then put some things in place to help that stress response, like yoga, meditation, any form of exercise can be very beneficial. Breath work, journaling, taking on maybe a new hobby. A lot of women during this perimenopause stage take on a new hobby because they have a little, like I said, they have a little more time for themselves. So what's something you've always wanted to do? Is it to learn to play a ukulele? Is it to take voice lessons? Honestly, that's one of mine. That's why I said that. I really want to learn to sing. So like, what's one thing that you've like been putting off that maybe you really want to take on? Like, you want to take dance lessons, something that's going to bring you joy. That's going to help with that stress response. So I encourage you to find that. I encourage you to find like, hey, what did I say I really wanted to do when I was younger? Maybe this is the time to take it on. And then sleep. Sleep is very important. And sleep is like a catch-22, because if you're not sleeping well, then your hormones are not operating well. But if your hormones are low, you're not sleeping well. So it's like, it's a never-ending cycle. You can't fix your hormones without fixing your sleep, and you can't fix your sleep without fixing that nervous system. So we really got to put things in place to ensure that we're setting ourselves up for really good sleep and addressing the things that are impacting our sleep, like that low progesterone that we talked about earlier. Because when we are not sleeping well, and our sleep is either poor quality, or you're laying in bed for hours before falling asleep, or you're waking up feeling worse than you did when you fell asleep, you're going to be more predisposed to have increased mood swings, anxiety, irritability. It leads to greater insulin resistance, meaning it can lead to more weight gain and sugar cravings. So your body has to work harder to control your blood sugar at that point. And overall, just feeling more fatigued and more brain fog throughout the day. So imagine you're already feeling these things from not sleeping well, and you compound the perimenopausal hormonal decrease onto this, and you just have this vicious cycle. And things that you can put in place to ensure that you're getting really good quality sleep is things like making sure that you have a consistent bedtime routine, so that you're programming your brain, okay, whenever we start taking a shower, brushing our teeth, washing our face, putting on our face products, that's like, it's bedtime. Like, you've triggered your brain to think, oh, it's bedtime. And then reducing blue light exposure. So a lot of us work behind screens. I'm guilty of it. Making sure that we're wearing blue blockers. I have some, not wearing them today for some reason, forgot to pull them out of my bag, but ensuring that you're minimizing your blue light exposure as much as possible, especially an hour before bed. Whether that looks like reading a physical book or wearing your blue blockers if you must be on screens before bed. But I really encourage you to leave your phone outside of your room, to not watch TV in your bedroom, so you're minimizing that blue light exposure. On my phone, I have a special setting that if I must be on my phone, like, I have it set up to turn red. So I have like a little key thing that I do for it to turn red at night. So if I must be on my phone, at least it's a red light versus a blue light. So there's little things you can put in place. Don't ask me how I did it, because I don't remember. It's on YouTube. Putting little things in place that are going to help decrease that blue light exposure, because that blue light actually decreases your brain's ability to make your sleepy hormone, which is melatonin. And we want as much of that as possible. And then making sure you're sleeping in a cool, dark room. Our body feels the most rested in a cool room. If we look up studies, the ideal temperature is 68 degrees. That to me feels really, really cold. But what is more comfortable than like a really cold room, and then you get to bundle up in your blankets? It feels so nice and cozy. So ensuring that you're in a cool and dark room. And dark room means there's no light. Like, if you have to put blackout curtains, I know I live by the mountain, so whenever there's a full moon, there's a lot of light that comes into my room. So I need those blackout curtains to block out the light of the moon. And then even for me, even the little light of the fire thing, the fire detector thing, like that to me stresses me out. So I wear a eye mask to go to sleep, because I want to be in complete and utter darkness. So what works best for you? Make sure your room is really nice and dark, and you don't have little lights like emitting that might be disrupting those sleeping hormones from staying consistent throughout the night. Oh, and then so ensure that you're just creating a really nice environment for you for sleep. Your bedroom should be specifically for sleeping. So your bedroom's not for crucial conversations. Your bedroom's not for stressful, scary movies. Your bedroom is not to watch your favorite crime show. because there's studies that show watching those things actually makes you stressed. It actually activates that stress response in your body. So don't do that, especially right before bed, especially in your bedroom. Your bedroom is your safe haven. It's the place that you go to be cozy and rest and relax. And then we're going to talk about bioidentical hormone replacement. So these are something that we all hear, whichever doctor you see in our practice, we stand true to the benefits of bioidentical hormone replacement. Personally, it has saved my life. I get to be energetic and I get to be fun and I get to enjoy my life because my hormones are optimal. So what are the benefits of bioidentical hormone replacement? It's being able to stabilize those hormone fluctuations. So not having those really big dips and valleys, being able to have a more consistent pattern and wave so that your body's not going through a roller coaster, being able to control those hot flashes, those mood swings, that sleep disruption, help your cycles become more regular until they eventually end. Your cycles will eventually end. You will cross into menopause, but we want them to not be such an unpredictable thing. Some women get really heavy periods or really painful periods in this perimenopause stage. And sometimes it impairs their ability to go on vacation or their ability to be at an event. And we don't want that. We want to be able to control that and make them as the least bothersome as possible. So we can benefit from hormones to help that transition. And then we talked about improving our quality of sleep. Progesterone is a natural sedative, so it naturally helps you fall into a deeper sleep. Progesterone is I love progesterone. It's my non-negotiable for me personally. And I always describe it, it's like a warm hug, a warm blanket, like a nice cuddle right before bed. I love it. And then estrogen, it's going to help reduce your night sweat so that you're not waking up drenched in sweat. And then it's going to help you fall and get more of that REM sleep so that you're feeling more rested in the mornings. Then we want to support your brain health. We want to support your ability to think through your day and not be so brain fogged. We want to make sure your mood is staying stable. You're not having these huge waves of anxiety or depression or brain fog, because having good estrogen levels supports your neurotransmitters, so your serotonin and your dopamine. So whenever estrogen falls, serotonin falls as well. And that's why there can be a lot of depression or low mood or irritability or anxiety that you don't really know where it's coming from. I've had a lot of female patients come to me and be like, I've never had anxiety, and all of a sudden I'm anxious about things that don't even make sense to me. I don't know what's happening. I've had so many patients say, I feel crazy. And it's because it's not so much like how they're processing the world, it's that their hormones are so low or there's so much fluctuation that all your hormones affect and touch so many other pieces in your body, like your neurotransmitters, which are your feel-good hormones. And then your testosterone, we talked about it, improving your confidence, your energy, your mental clarity. Personally, testosterone to me helps build stress resiliency. So I ask women often, do you feel like you can't handle stress the way you used to, or you're overwhelmed or stressed about things you were never stressed or overwhelmed about? You can't just let things roll off. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, testosterone will help build that stress resiliency back up, where you're not flipping a switch at the slightest inconvenience. You're able to actually move through obstacles in life smoothly versus just becoming completely overwhelmed by them. And then you're questioning yourself, why am I overwhelmed about this? And logically you're like, this doesn't make sense, but you have no control because you're in that hormonal fluctuation. So bioidentical hormone replacement can help stabilize that. And then we talked about the importance of estrogen for your bone density, really important to keep your bones nice and healthy and strong. We start to lose bone mass. Sorry, there's a little gnat and I don't want to eat it. We start to lose bone density as early as in our 30s. And for all of us that love coffee, that even predisposes even more about losing our bone. So honestly, majority of people I know love their coffee, drink their coffee. That increases your bone loss, and then you start to lose bone at the age of 30. So we want to ensure that we keep your hormone levels optimal so that your bone is protected and you're not at risk of fractures in the future. We want to make sure we protect your heart, that we protect your arteries, that we keep them nice and limber and flexible so that you have good circulation. And then we want to protect your brain. We don't want your brain to be on fire every time you're having a hot flash. We want to make sure there's good circulation to your brain and you're feeling sharp and you're feeling optimal. And then we want to make sure we protect the vaginal tissue. So when the estrogen is low, we start to see the vaginal dryness, and then we start to see the vaginal tissue start to atrophy. So that means it starts to get more brittle, and there can be pain with intercourse. And when that happens, you're more predisposed to have urinary tract infections. So we want to ensure that that tissue stays nice and plump and you can still enjoy a good, healthy sex life in the future. And overall, just improvement of quality of life, like making sure that you are able to manage everyday stress, that you're able to enjoy your partner, that vaginal tissue stays nice and healthy, you're not predisposed to having UTIs. A lot of really elderly patients end up in the hospital sickly, and they test their urine and they've had a UTI that they didn't even know because their vaginal tissue is so fragile. So ensuring that tissue stays nice and healthy, just improving your overall vitality, decreasing your risk of cardiovascular disease, your risk of dementia, your risk of bone fractures, and helping women feel themselves again. Just feel like they are even keel and they can do life just like they've been doing life without a roller coaster of emotions to deal with day to day. Not even just a roller coaster of emotions, but a roller coaster of physical symptoms of like feeling overly cold and then hot, and then like waking up achy and not knowing why your elbow all of a sudden hurts, or why your knee all of a sudden hurts, or like why your back is achy. Why all of a sudden you look in the mirror and like you feel ugly. I know that's happened to me. I don't know if it's happened to others, but like you just look in the mirror and you're like, I don't know who I am. Or I just like, you don't have that of like, wow, I'm going to put on this really nice outfit and I'll feel amazing. I'm going to take on the day. Like being able to have that feeling still and being able to take on your day. And so we have a question of if HRT is linked to cancer, and that's a really, really common question that we get. But as more studies have been done, there's actually been the reversal of that thought process of cancer actually being preventative for a lot of cancers. And a lot of those original dogma of bioidentical hormones or hormones in general cause cancers, a lot of those studies were actually done on synthetic hormones that are nowhere like what our body produces. So now we are working with bioidentical hormones that are created to look exactly like what our body makes. So that means they're gonna bind to our receptors exactly like they should and activate those receptors exactly like they should, like nature intended it to, versus the synthetic hormones that maybe will bind on there, but have side effects or do things differently, very similar to birth control. Birth control is synthetic hormones. And that's why we see some women have a lot of side effects from it, because they might bind the receptors, but cause different reactions than they intended. But yeah, we like I said, all of us really big proponents on helping women really balance their hormones. So you can see doing bioidentical hormone replacement as well as these 4 key factors that you can put into place now, like strength training, your diet, your managing your stress, and then sleep. And then we have a lot of natural supplements that can really help this stage, depending where you're at in the stage. But these 4 pillars are really, really crucial. So I thank you for coming to this webinar and spending lunch with me. It's been great to tell you a little bit about what we do. Like I said, I love the knowledge that we have. I love to be able to educate, especially women, on all the transitions of life and how they can live their most optimal life and still kick ass at life. And so I appreciate everybody for being on. And If you would love to get in touch with us, here's our information. And I wish you guys a very beautiful day.